Welcome to the Evolving Leadership Development Podcast. Each episode brings you fresh perspectives from thinkers and practitioners who are redefining leadership in the age of AI.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Evolving Leadership Development. I am Panos Malakoudis, and I'm really excited today to have with me Sanaz Kalantari. Sanaz is a certified coach and an energy leadership master practitioner. Among that, she's also a very good friend of mine, and we've worked together, and I was really excited. We've been talking about doing this for how long, Sanaz? A few months now.
Yes, maybe more.
So finally we did it. So welcome. And, to get us started, we've been talking about this notion of energy leadership and the Energy Leadership Index. What is that?
Right. And thanks so much for having me. I am super excited to have this conversation. I know I'm always talking about energy leadership and AI, and this is such a good opportunity to go deeper into that. What is energy leadership? Pano, I came across this in my coach training when I was at 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗳𝗍, and I thought it was such a powerful framework. It was holistic enough for me to kind of connect so many things that I had learned, whether it was a little bit of philosophy, 𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗍𝗲𝗍, the connection between feelings, emotions, thoughts, core beliefs, our mindset, and how we make choices. And it was just such a great way to put everything in the context of energy. And it's something that we always think about, but we don't really have a language when we think about energy. But deep down, it's what really runs throughout our lives. So when I came across this, which is actually a framework that's developed by Bruce D. Schneider, and there's actually a book called Energy Leadership. And it really helps us understand, or gives us a language on how energy. And when we talk about energy, it's about the energy of our thoughts and emotions and that level of awareness that we bring into situations and how we show up as leaders. So I found that super helpful because it's something not only at work, but at life. When it comes to performance, we talk about it, and it's so many different ways. There's actually maps 7 levels of energy. It goes from reactive states, like fear, resistance, control, and it goes all the way to these sort of creative and purpose-driven states that we show up, things like curiosity, compassion, and innovation. And it really helps that reframe of personal leadership, I would say, in a very simple but powerful way. So, the whole idea
I like simple.
Yes,
I like simple and powerful, and as a Greek person, my Greek radar catches all these terms that sound Greek, and there are a couple in that model, right? So, tell me very quickly about this anabolic and catabolic energy, which are actually Greek words.
Oh, yeah, good. Look, what I learned was, again, they come from Latin and Greek roots, where ana is about building up and this idea of things coming together and building up, where cat is all about kind of like down and resistance. And as I was mentioning it, the energy moves from this sort of catabolic or, an energy of resistance and things that might be a little bit more condensing, all the way to energy that helps us build and go up. And if we kind of think about even physics, I always use this in the way I teach this. Even if we think about physics, there's energies that break things, necessary in life, sometimes necessary in everything. And then there's energies that build things. So catabolic refers to the types of energy that is more in a way destructive, but let's say stress, the energy that we might feel when it comes to fear, resistance, all of that worry, anxiety, if we want to put words around our states of minds or, emotional states. And then anabolic is those kind of on the other side, where we're talking about healing, joy, satisfaction, all those great feelings that we have. And they make us feel like, we're creating, we're in that sort of higher levels of consciousness. So instead of saying negative and positive energy or bad or good, which is really interesting when we ask a lot of people, in these workshops, what's your energy? Oh, it's good or bad, or it's high or low. Or if it's, people would kind of really have this sort of ones and zeros. This is a much more bigger language to really use when we talk about energy. And it's much more helpful, especially when it comes to describing energy. So we either are in some level of catabolic energy, and we can kind of sense that in our body, or we're in anabolic energy, which is, again, we can sense that in our body. And I would say what I love about this work is that it doesn't say it's bad or good, but we all know if we stay too much in, this sort of resistance and stress energy for too long, we know that the impact of that in our life or the way that we approach things is not really aligned with, the higher levels of energy that we like experiencing. So it has an impact on the body as well, catabolic or anabolic.
Should we then, you're making me think, this distinction of good or bad, 1 or 0, you kind of not seeing this in a binary way. Do we need catabolic energy?
Yes. Well, this goes back, and see, I love that, you brought the whole great, because I think it's a little bit about understanding our feel like our nature and where we come from and how our bodies work and how our evolution. So it's, yes, we do need it, because these are part of who we are as psychosomatic beings. If we didn't need fear, then we wouldn't have had it. So we've come into this world and we have fear, and we have worry, and we have all of these sort of fight, flight, freeze mechanisms that protects us. Yes, we do need it. Do we need it in the sense of our modern work and modern life? I think our systems, our protective systems, are not really recognizing, the true signals of danger as much. And I think there's so much study there. So yes, I think as part of evolution, we need it. But are we really, I want to say, operating in the right way in this modern life that we have? Perhaps there's, I think, a big question.
Finding kind of the balance between anabolic and catabolic. And you're making me think, and we talked about kind of the Greek philosophy and this notion of eudaimonia, evdaimonia in Greek, eudaimonia, which is, for ancient Greeks, it was never a pursuit of happiness, right? What we in life, we need to pursue, just happiness. That's the end result. And for ancient Greeks, it was never that. Eudaimonia comes from good demons. So demon in ancient Greece didn't have the negative connotation or the negative meaning that it has right now. You had good demons and you had bad demons. And instead of the pursuit for happiness, both kind of demons would assist you in your pursuit of a meaningful life, inclusive of challenges, right? So it was not only let's find only the positive. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. But let me ask you this now. You posted recently on LinkedIn, and I strongly recommend for people to kind of follow you on your LinkedIn, read this article, an article called the Inner Game of Leadership. I think, yes, the Inner Game of Leadership, which is a nice play on the Inner Game of Tennis, a book from a few decades back. And there you talk about a couple of really interesting things. Well, the whole thing is really interesting, but a couple of things stood out for me. One was where you were saying, making the link to leadership, that leaders are not leaders because of what they do, but because of who they are. So that kind of self-awareness is really important, and the self-awareness around their energy levels and the energy makeup, I guess, is really, really important. So tell me a little bit about, how is that self-awareness in a little bit greater detail important for leaders and their own leadership development?
And it goes back into, again, this understanding of what's the energy behind the thoughts and actions. So, yes, when we say it's not what you do, it's who you are or how you show up or who you are in that moment. You still do something in that moment. You still make a choice, and that choice and that action has an impact. What's really interesting is why you do something or how you do it is very much dependent on your state of mind. So let me give you an example. So if a leader is in a catabolic state of mind, or coming up with that sort of real control and friction, what they do and, how they might have some great tactics on how they want to manage time or how they want to give feedback to an employee, that energy of catabolic will come through. So it's more who they are in that moment or how they're looking at, the life and situation or themselves and their relationship that will really come through that feedback rather than the feedback model itself. So I think that's where if we're talking about organizational leadership, I think it's really important that leaders also pay attention to who they are being in that moment, more than what they need to do. Because when you have a misalignment of your energy, I think the impact or the way you show up or the action is not necessarily the intent of, that leadership. So I think that's what I wanted to say in that, that it is actually Simon Sinek, I think, posted something on LinkedIn today, and it was a poll. And it's interesting. And it said, which one is more important for you? To learn leadership skills and tactics, or to learn a leadership style? I think that was his word. I'm paraphrasing. Leadership style and the choices that you make as a leader in your life. And for me, it was the second one, that it was much more important to understand who you are and the choices you make in life every day, every moment, which would reflect back into your leadership. So I think it's great to learn a lot of tactics and, how to do something. But I think it's far more important on who you are being energetically.
Energetically, yeah.
Energetically.
And you remind me this quote, and I will not make the mistake of saying who it was because I'm not really sure. I think it was a psychologist that said, "Be ready to learn all the models and all the frameworks and all the theory very, very well, so that you can eventually abandon them in front of the miracle of the human soul." Right? But you need to learn them, but you need to evolve and go past that
Yes.
eventually.
Yes.
Is it then, Sanaz, about leadership presence eventually?
I think it is. I think presence, and interesting enough that we think about presence is just a state. I actually think presence is also a skill that you can learn how to be present. And that, yes, that changes your energy. So yes, I think it's a lot of it is to do with presence and also being aware of in the present moment where you are from an energetic, I know we didn't go through the details of, well, what does it mean? We only talked about catabolic and anabolic, but there's so many levels there's actually 2 levels of catabolic energy. And it's really important to know the difference. If we are not in a, I want to say motivational level of energy, or if we're not feeling inspirational because we're worried, because we're anxious, because we are, stressed, because we have all of these things going on, then we are in a catabolic state. But there's also a difference between anxiety, frustration, and there's a difference between fear and worry. And there's also a difference between anger. So which catabolic energy are we in? So I can be present, and I can be present to that state. And I think it is a lot about present, but it's also about choosing. It's a lot of it is about consciously choosing the thoughts, the states, And we may not be able to shift this as quickly as we like, but I think it's really important to become aware and become present to where we are and why we might be there and what might be holding us back from being in an anabolic state of mind and energy, which in fact, actually there's 5 of them. And there's, they go all the way from compassion, resilience, all the way to, creativity and this sort of utopia of being completely non-judgmental, flow, all of that sort of great stuff that we know what it feels like to be, and we might be going up and down from them, but to be present, I think it's the most important.
Yeah, I love what you said there, which is I'm kind of converting it in my own thinking process, which is it starts with acknowledging, right? It starts that exercise of self-awareness. It starts with acknowledging in which energy state am I right now? Where do I want to get to? Is it serving me, this emotional state, this energetical state right now for what I want to do?
Is it helpful?
Is it helpful?
Is it helpful? And in coaching, we talk a lot about it's not good or bad, but is it helpful? Is it where you want to be? Is it a conscious choice? And I think you said something, if I'm not saying the wrong Greek word, but about the demons, and it's not a bad demon. That it's not bad. You may consciously choose to be in a conflict because sometimes we have to fight for something. But if we're doing it out of autopilot, or if we're doing it because our nervous system is overloaded, and the first thing that, our protective system is to fight or, be in a conflict with someone because we feel threatened and it's not helpful, then we're not consciously choosing that fight, or we're not consciously choosing that conflict. The conflict can actually be healthy. It's catabolic. It's not, anabolic, but it's actually a necessary energy. So I wanted to add that because you said it's, does it serve us? Is it helpful? Is it where we need to be? Not just me, do we need to be there, right? As a team, as a system.
Amazing. So true. So true. Now, this wouldn't be a leadership evolution podcast if we didn't talk about AI. So I guess based on the context of this conversation, and if we consider the fact that AI is changing many things and it's creating a lot of excitement, it's creating a lot of worries as well. What is the opportunity in the context of that self-awareness and inner leadership, inner energy leadership for leaders in the context of AI? What is it that they need to focus more on right now, and perhaps in the future, 10 years from now? What is the, we both come from a learning and development background. What is the learning path?
Yeah. And the article that I wrote, as I said, I think we're in a time where our nervous system feels like it's doing a full workout. So I think AI, technology has a lot to do with it, but I think in the past few years, or in the past couple of years, AI is really changing that at a different speed that I think maybe even us who've been in technology and are used to that sort of curve of transformation and adoption, we're finding it quite messy in a sense to try and figure out I want to say between all the anabolic and catabolic energies, where what is going on, all the excitement of what we can do with AI and all the learning that comes with it is overloading our nervous system, I think. At the same time, there's all these, confusion and concern about uncertainty, which is a little bit more catabolic, anxiety around what could this mean to our lives? What could this mean to our jobs? What about the generation after us? So I think as leaders, I think it's really important to be aware of all of that and, how we might be tipping from one to another, but how much of that is really dysregulating our systems, our own nervous system. And I think if people are in positions of managing teams or managing people, how much it's dysregulating other people's nervous system. And I think we saw that. I've seen that firsthand in in group coaching, in coaching, of how much of the big elephant in the room, we're learning about AI, we're getting excited about AI, and at the same time, we're getting so anxious and uncertain. So that, I think, screams for leaders who are very aware of how to regulate, self-regulate their own nervous system, but also be aware of how to create psychological safe spaces for others. So that's only a tiny, I think, aspect of talking about AI and leadership, because we could go, this is just thinking about, okay, we have AI working with us in the workplace, and this is what's happening. So how do we as leaders step up? And, I think we've seen almost every single report that's coming out of World Economic Forum, or I think we saw a new one with all the new skills from Sydney University, that it's saying that more and more the learning and the skills that we need in the future are human skills. I think they used to be called soft skills. I would like to call them core skills, because I think when we call them softer skills, then I think they don't get enough attention. I think as leaders, we need to become better. We've talked about this for decades, but I think even more and more, we need to listen more. We need to create psychological safety more in the age of AI. We need to be aware of the cognitive load. At the same time, how do we become really, really wise and smart on what goes to AI and what doesn't, and what stays with us? I think it's really important to be able to make those distinctions. It's almost like, in coaching as well, we say the wisdom is in what can I control and what is outside my control. And that's a massive skill, to be able to, in the moment, make that decision to go, okay, this is not in my control. I let this one go. This is in my control. I pay attention to it. I
And
think
my
it's
sphere of influence.
Yes, but I think it's the same thing with AI. I think we need to build a wisdom model to say what can go to AI, or what should go to AI, and what should stay with us. And I don't know. I find that as a leadership skill as well, to be able to. But I think for me, Pano, it's self-regulation, creating psychological safety. I think really, really understanding what adaptive means in the moment. So we've got all these framework, all these amazing things that have worked for decades. Which one is really helpful in the moment when the context changes? How can we become better at, I want to say critical thinking, but also contextual thinking? If the context is changing, how quickly can I change the way I think about it? And I think if we can do that as leaders, but also, elevate everybody else to also think about that, I think we can create a better AI partnered future for ourselves.
And the other thing you're making me think is that, this is a period where many organizations are looking for training and for experiences for their leadership team, how to do more AI leadership, or leadership for AI transformation. And we know that the AI transformation is different in many ways to previous digital transformations, primarily for two reasons. One is that the speed is immensely faster with AI versus older digital transformations, right? And the other thing is that it's really ambiguous. You don't really know what to do with AI. You see the opportunity, but it's a kind of a blue ocean, glass half full kind of approach, right? And I see many programs coming out of companies trying to sell such offerings to organizations that simply teach AI to leaders, for the leaders to understand what's possible with the technology. But that's just technical skilling. You're talking about something that I find your voice extremely sober, and we need more voices like yours. You're basically saying, if you want effective AI leadership, start from within. Start with your own self-awareness so that you can manage the journey ahead of you, so that you can manage the choices that you need to make that AI won't make for you, or you don't want AI to make those choices for you. I wrote an article recently on leadership choices in the AI world, right? And it is something that I think the upcoming next year, one of the Choice magazine issues will be talking about. What are the choices that we as human coaches and as human leaders need to retain in the age of AI. So I would love to see a lot more of these development companies adding that aspect to the very popular theme of how do we train leaders on this AI world.
Yeah, I think you're speaking my language, and you're singing the same song. And I think this doesn't get enough airtime. I think yes, I come from a background of coaching, but also for years, I've also worked on programs where it's all about the hard skills. How do we build cloud skills, and how do we get better, and how important that technical skills are for the future of. In Australia, we talk about how important it is. If we don't have enough engineers or technical people who are digitally literate, and as a nation, we're not, we're going to fall behind. So I can't say that is so important, but I don't think what you and I are talking about gets enough airtime, especially when it comes to leadership, because at the end of the day, it's people. We're talking about people, and we talked about how we upgrade almost every system, and we learn about how quickly we can, and how quickly are we upgrading the AI systems. If something doesn't work, we quickly upgrade it, and there's a new version of it. We can't upgrade our nervous system, we can't upgrade our our mind, but the beauty of it is I don't think we've even tapped into the potential of how we can do things, how we can optimize our own systems, through recovery, through better practices, mindful practices, becoming better human, and really working on our own human skills. So I was thinking, so what better time if AI is doing so many things and taking a little bit of time away from all those, processing and administrative tasks that we used to do. And we probably didn't have enough time to think about, building better habits or behavior. So maybe this is the opportunity to upgrade in a different sense. We upgrade our. So I couldn't agree with you that I don't think the organizations are putting enough emphasis on, behavior or mindset types of skills. And I think coming from learning and development, even I think we've maybe, I want to say, underestimate development. And I think maybe another thing, I was also reflecting on this. I'm thinking, we probably assume people come into workplace already having skills like curiosity, or skills like, lifelong learning. I think these are now called skills, although we thought, oh, they're just personality types. But no, these are actually skills. Everybody can, cultivate these. But maybe we just assumed that this is something people come in, or they just develop, or some sort of training is just enough. And we know, this is what I'm thinking. If it's softer skills, then it's something that is not hard-coded. Then it's something that needs to be constantly practiced. It needs to be constantly developed.
Nurtured.
So maybe it needs to be nurtured. So even if we want to use the word soft skills, which I'm not as keen, I like to use core skills. But even if it's soft, let's think about it as something that needs to be nurtured and developed. And it's something that can actually be reshaped. And not assume that, everybody either has it or they don't, or if we need so much of that in the workplace as leaders, how do we create systems and spaces to cultivate these skills? So yeah.
To hold the space and create the environment. I think it was the late Sir Ken Robinson in a TED talk that he talked about how we are born with creativity, and the school system just completely strips it out of us, right? And you go into many events, corporate events, or offsites, or team buildings, and you have a host and facilitator that says, "Who here thinks they are creative?" And most people just huddle down. I'm not creative, right? But we're all born creative. But if the environment doesn't nurture curiosity, if the environment doesn't value curiosity, perhaps you're curious by nature. You are curious by nature. It's anthropological. That's why we survived as a species. And there's many things that you said that are anthropological. Having that need to some extent for catabolic energy, because that's the alarm that says, hold on, there's a lion coming towards you. That's not anabolic energy. That's, we're scared. We need to start running. And you also talked about something that I find really, really interesting. And just this morning, as I was browsing through LinkedIn, I saw a post from an event that was happening in Athens this week, where one of the presenters had a slide about how can AI in kind of in the banking industry help that industry. And my eyes fell on that first bullet. And it was a very simple statement. I wrote it down and I commented on that because I really, really loved about how it was reframing some things. And you might have heard the EU leadership team making bold announcements about how Europe is now AI first, right? We love saying AI first and AI first. That person, which I found absolutely brilliant, he said that we need to develop an AI instinct. And I was thinking about that. I said, but this is brilliant, because how we talk about things and the vocabulary that we use about talking about some of the things is really interesting. Because as a human species, when you hear AI first, you say, so that means me second, right? So I now have lower priority, right? So everything we do, first give it to AI. No, having an AI instinct as a leader, this is so much better way of describing this, right? Which is not AI first, but hold on, I got this task, I got this conundrum, this challenge. What is my instinct? Can AI help here? Not by default, let's just throw it over to AI. So the way that we talk, and you talked a lot about how is your energy, I'll call it in my own words, rubs off to people around you. In a similar way, how you perceive the AI opportunity and the AI challenges, and how you communicate and you talk about these things. So very important, Sanaz, right?
Yeah. So, and I love the AI instinct. And yeah, in my own words, I was also thinking the same in terms of, where do we bring in the wisdom of, the distinctions between, making that decision. And I think it's a wisdom. And, I was also thinking about coaching skills and how important it's becoming, even self-coaching, to be able to ask those questions. So not just assume what we've heard, or how AI has been, in the past few months, this is how it would be. I think constantly questioning and becoming curious about what's working, what's not working. And I think it's super important to be able to not only coach ourselves but as leaders. How do we become better coaches to ask better questions and to bring the wisdom into surface? So
I love it because it's already there, right? That's why we didn't coach. We just bring it out.
Yes.
Sanaz, I think we could do like a Netflix special of many episodes about this topic. But I think it looks like we're at time now. Thank you so much. I think we need to do a part 2 at some point.
I would love that.
So let's see what happens with that. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who was listening in today. Please follow Sanaz on LinkedIn. Her thought leadership is absolutely amazing. I'm really grateful for you giving me the time today in this episode. And let's make that part 2 a reality at some point in time.
Thank you so much, Panos. I really appreciate it. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.